Aragami is somewhat of a small-time series at this point. However, with the first game being released back in 2016 to some success, it was only a matter of time before a sequel came out. And finally, we have it, the follow-up, hoping to be bigger, better, and even more tactical than the first, in one of the best stealth franchises of all time. This is Aragami 2. This video is sponsored by Ragnarok Origin. Oh, this is where the fun begins. Ragnarok Origin is an epic MMORPG that has just become pre-registration on mobile. It has infinite character customization, whether you're upgrading your weapons, armor, or even your magical abilities, all to fit your playstyle. Whether you're an incredibly powerful offensive attacker, or maybe you want to hold back tank and defensive character. Take to the dungeons and get ready to fight powerful bosses that you're going to encounter along the way. The whole game in Ragnarok Origins has this amazing RPG story campaign set in this fantasy world to discover all these fun and evil secrets hidden within your stories. Choosing your path with different missions, events, and daily quests, you will meet some unforgettable friends along the way. The game has some dynamic battle action with hundreds of weapons with improved strike motions. Fight with multiple magical and legendary arenas throughout the dungeons of the kingdom and improve your RPG glory and skills. Make special relationships with the community, playing with other players, getting friends, and making parties with each other, and fully fledged guild systems. So if you're into this sort of thing, click the link in the description and pre-register Ragnarok Origins today. A quick overview of what the first Aragami was. It was a stealth-orientated game taking players into the shoes of the ninja, clearing the lands of unwanted clans. You played as an assassin with almost supernatural shadow powers, using these shadow powers to take you from one place to the next, creeping in, hiding until it was your moment to pounce upon the enemy. The game was basic, but honed its stealth mechanics to a T. Facing enemies one-on-one or confronting them in the open was suicide, as one hit would take you down, making stealth the only real way forwards, making your way through different linear missions and levels that had some good variation, but as I mentioned, didn't quite have the depth that may have been made by a more established development team. However, the game was received pretty well, especially with its co-op additions. It was a unique take on the stealth genre, which before was primarily focused on being a single-player only experience. So, with these positive responses, the developers Lince Works started on a sequel, which takes us to today. Aragami 2, on the face of it, does what was promised. The game, for starters, is a massive jump up when it comes to visual quality. The new graphic style is much less cel-shaded and goes for a more typical realistic cartoon crossover. The lighting has had a complete overhaul and makes for some beautiful scenery, especially set in this gorgeous Japanese-inspired landscape. Despite being an obvious sequel to the first, however, Aragami focuses way more on an RPG aspect and less linear-based story progression. Having your own home village that you keep coming back to after missions, where you meet new NPC characters of various personalities.
Yeah, man.
He's happy again. They all have their own typical NPC uses, such as upgrading the skills that you can use, the equipment you have, and of course giving you hints and guiding you through the missions and story that is presented to you. Shadow powers are back in a big way, and now instead of just jumping from one shadow to another, they can be upgraded and used to work in completely different ways. Completing missions successfully, such as wiping out all the guards undetected or finding all the golden pickups, gives you more XP and wealth in order to unlock more of these shadow moves. Things such as whispering to call over enemies, creating shadows where there's light, giving you a new place to hide in, or even grappling enemies towards you from a distance for those beautiful takedowns. Additionally, you can use gold to upgrade your weapons and armor, and this is where the complete detail overhaul shines. It is incredibly satisfying to unlock a new breastplate or sword. All the models look amazing and really encourage you as a player to keep leveling up and unlocking new things.
I found some blueprints. I'm on the tools.
Oh my god. Look at me, James. Look how goddamn badass I look.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm so
I'm
cool.
gonna wait for the next set of shit, and then I'll get that stuff so that we don't look the same.
Once again, however, the story is somewhat basic. The general gist of it is to clear your lands from the invading forces that have its people under its control. However, deciding not to focus on the actual story, if you just want to sort of hop along with your mates, it's not really going to affect the enjoyment really all that much, as the storytelling isn't really the game's main focus. The main focus, once again, is its stealth, however, somewhat less than what we saw in the first Aragami. You see, in Aragami 1, as mentioned, stealth was pretty much the only option. The shadow power you had was limited to teleporting from one shadow to the next, as being caught in the open was tantamount to suicide. But here, you're able to actually hold your own in a fight. Despite this, the stealth has been fleshed out a little more. With new shadow powers and double jumping, you're able to traverse the maps much more swiftly and freely. Verticality is now a massive part, leaping from one ledge to another on buildings, up cliffs, and taking down enemies from above. The rooftop assassination will be one of your most used attacks, as jumping down upon an enemy is almost a one-hit kill, and it makes you feel like a badass. However, because it is so effective, combining this with your incredibly fast-moving characters now, sometimes instead of sneaking around, luring enemies into shadows and getting the drop on them, I often found it was just faster and somewhat easier to charge at an enemy out of cover, using these shadow leaps and bounds to then come down from above with an aerial assault, getting those sweet assassinations. You move so fast now that if you do it properly, the enemy just don't have time to react before you get the kill on them, and it makes for some awesome feeling kills.
Oh, it wasn't the civilian that found the body, it's this guy.
Whoa. What the hell just happened? That was amazing.
I just leapt over that barrier, just saw his body fucking like moonwalking across in front of me.
However, because of this, sneaking around isn't used as much and is not actually the best way to do it if you want to get really fast times. Unless, however, you're trying to get past multiple heavier enemies at once. I mentioned that this game takes away some of the focus on stealth, and this is due to the addition of an actual combat system, being able to face an enemy up front, weapons drawn. It's a much more daring move, but definitely a viable tactic. The combat system is by no means in-depth. You've got your simple attacks, blocks, and dodge movements, and they'll pretty much suffice. It can get the job done if you're in a pickle. Despite this new addition, it can go pretty wrong though, with some bugs that I found within the game end up with players sometimes being glitch hit or stuck locked onto a target that they kind of want to run away from at some point. I'm finding it hard to do so because of this lock-on mechanic, which is incredibly infuriating. But one of the greatest new additions is of course the inclusion of brilliant gore. It is way more bloody and gory than the first game, and because of this graphics and lighting overhaul, it's so satisfying to sneak up upon an enemy or call them from behind a crate and drag them into the shadows as blood seeps out onto the cobbled stones. Whilst a small addition, it does make for some great scenarios. Assassinate. Ugh. Oh my god, there's so much more blood in this game. Oh my god. Oh, I can carry him. Oh yes. Bye-bye, my friend. Whee! If I had to pick, however, my favourite part of the game, it's got to be the co-op. Of course, you can play through everything offline and solo if that's more your thing, but playing with a friend makes everything way more fun. Having the ability to go through missions with up to 2 other players means that you can set up these incredibly cool coordinated attacks and set pieces, taking out multiple enemies at once. Right, once he's turned around, go through and get him, I guess. Beautiful. Wait, you get the guy that's coming over, and if the other guy goes over, then...
Okay, I didn't expect him to jump up. That worked flawlessly, because the guy down there did not see that.
Or, if caught out, have someone back you up if needs be.
They're literally staring at each other. Well, have fun.
James!
You've got it.
Are you not coming to help?
I got another man to kill.
Ow, I'm dead. Overall, Aragami has some great additions over the first game. Leveling up moves, new equipment and weapons, much more focused on the RPG style of gameplay, and of course those beautiful new animations, whether it's in free running, stealth, or these assassinations. The enemies are much more varied as well, with fire-throwing lookouts, or just even general civilians now, who won't attack you, but if spotting suspicious activity, will call the guards and alert everyone nearby. You also can't goddamn kill them, which can be incredibly annoying when they scream from the rooftop seeing you drag a body into the shadows. Yet despite my praise, it isn't all happy assassins and dead enemies for Aragami 2. At this point, the game is riddled with bugs. Whilst free running and swift animations within the game are a big improvement over the first, because of these more complex actions, sometimes you find yourself getting stuck on walls, or not jumping over a rooftop properly, or missing teleportations, which makes for some infuriating moments. Often enemies can spot you from places that maybe they shouldn't be able to, and fighting them one-on-one in these new combat moments, as mentioned previously is way riskier, not just down to powerful enemies, but also down to clunky lock-on methods and not a very well-refined combat system. As mentioned, jumping off rooftops to do these vertical takedowns is badass, but instead of in the first game where you'd perch on a ledge and then you'd press a button which would then do the whole assassination action, now you have to jump on your own first, click the assassinate button in midair and just hope the game registers your button press and performs that takedown. Otherwise you end up just landing next to your enemy and of course you blow your cover. Yes, that has happened multiple times to me.
Right, I'll take this guy up top. You can take that guy.
Oh my god, I'm dead. In conclusion, the reception has been mostly positive for Aragami 2. Whilst advancing on many of the new mechanics from the first game, I do think a lot of people have found it may have lost its charm a little bit, taking away many of the story elements to focus on these new gameplay mechanics that aren't quite as polished as the first. You see, with Aragami 1, it was an incredibly simple game. It had but 2 or 3 different mechanics to contribute to the game loop. They were refined, incredibly well done, and the edges were smoothed off to make this incredibly simplistic yet beautiful gameplay experience. And this is very much contrasted by Aragami 2, which has packed in way more content, but not quite with the same quality or finesse as the first. So would I recommend buying it? Well, the first Aragami at launch was around $20. This one is around $30, so it's kind of hard to say if there's that $10 more value from the new one with all these new additions. However, many of these things that are just bugs and clunky implementation can be fixed in patches, which isn't the hardest thing to do in the world. But I'd probably recommend trying the first Aragami. You can pick it up for pretty cheap at the moment, and it has a really amazing stealth experience. If you enjoy that, maybe then look onto heading into the second. You'll still have a lot of fun, but perhaps meet a bit less of an indie experience and more of an attempt at a larger scale, more mainstream stealth game. It's great, but different. However, if you're a co-op lover, if you have multiple friends that you can play with, both Aragami games are fantastic for this, and especially the second. A really fun, speedy, and satisfying game that if not taken too seriously, you can get so many hours of fun within. But let me know what you think. Did you play the first, and how do you think Aragami 2 compares? Let me know down below in the comments. But leave a like in the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.